Just before the turn of the 20th century, two young bicycle makers dreamed of building a flying machine. They rode to a place where the science of aeronautics was being collected and preserved. That place was the Smithsonian Institution.
My observations have convinced me that human flight is possible and practicable. It is only a question of knowledge and skill. I am an enthusiast, but not a crank in the sense that I have some pet theories as to the proper construction of a flying machine. I wish to avail myself of all that is already known. Wilbur Wright.
Like the Wright brothers, people seeking knowledge have turned to the Smithsonian for inspiration and answers. The institution's uniqueness and reputation is based on research and the extraordinary artifacts it is privileged to hold. The Smithsonian's flight collection grew as one milestone after another was achieved in aviation and space exploration. Artifacts like Orville and Wilbur's flyer began filling the halls of the institution.
We opened the museum and it became such a big success, it overwhelmed us. We thought it'd be successful, but nothing like it was.
Our mall facility is a magnificent place to display aircraft and spacecraft, but it can't hold the larger or even many of the other aircraft. So what we've had to do was to build this facility to get almost 80% of our collection on display.
When I first came to the Udvar-Hazy Center, I was simply overwhelmed. I couldn't talk. I didn't have any thoughts because it was so astounding. It was so moving that it drove all thoughts out of my mind, and all that was left were emotions.
I've stood out here and watched people, and when they walk out to what looks like a balcony that overlooks the museum, and they look to their right and they see an F-14 Tomcat, and they look to their left and see a Concorde, and look in front of them and see a space shuttle, and look down a little bit and see the SR-71 and the World War II Corsair and the P-40. Almost invariably, they look around and say, wow.
Inspiration is where education begins. It's one thing to read about the history of flight or space travel, or to see pictures, but to see the craft in front of you, or suspended in the air above you, it brings history alive.
I hope that the children who visit the museum are motivated to continue the work and the programs that they see represented in the artifacts.
What makes this collection so compelling is they are the actual artifacts that represent those milestones in aviation and spaceflight. And I think if an inanimate object can have charisma, these are the ones that do.
We have the largest and most diverse collection of air and space artifacts in the world. So we have 126 airplanes, which are the only ones of their type left in the world. We have another 34, of which there are less than 5 throughout the world. The word awesome is used very often these days, but I think it certainly applies here. Magnificent, fantastic, the superlatives certainly apply.
The Phase 2 expansion will enable the museum's collections to be better cared for and more accessible to students, teachers, veterans, engineers, entrepreneurs, historians, pilots, and visitors from around the world. These amazing artifacts and the stories they tell are especially inspirational to young people.
Generations of children are able to learn through the Smithsonian that their dreams can become reality.
Patty Wagstaff, when she was 8 years old, she came to this museum and was looking at Amelia Earhart's of Lockheed Vega, and she reached over and touched it and then told her mother she was going to be a pilot.
Well, when I was 12 years old, my parents brought me to the National Air and Space Museum, and when they opened those doors, it was like opening a treasure chest to a little kid. And I would just run around the corridors, and each room had something new and exciting. And when I saw the documentation on the women Air Force service pilots who flew fighter and bomber aircraft in World War II, I knew that my dream of becoming a fighter pilot could come true.
I find the National Air and Space Museum quite inspirational to children, and a place where they can come and learn a great deal in a short period of time. just being able to point at it and look at the different things that may excite them. That's a way actually to get them engaged and interested in science and technology, be able to explain how engineers and scientists work together to make these things happen.
The journey that began over the sands of Kitty Hawk continues with each new achievement. Every generation is inspired by the challenges previous innovators were able to overcome.
It is not a coincidence that our dedication coincides with the celebration marking 100 years of powered flight. This new annex of the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum is a gift to all of mankind in search of knowledge, adventure, and better understanding of the outer limits of our own talents. It is a valuable lesson to all who will enter these doors that dreams, no matter how elusive and how impossible, can be translated into reality, and that adversity can be overcome by human willpower and determination.
In 4 years, the Wright brothers went from their first design concepts to the Wright Flyer 1. The brothers recognized that pioneers stand on the shoulders of those who have gone before.
I think flight is innately of interest to humans. It's in our core as a species. But on a more tangible basis, I think it's the collection, the objects. The aircraft and spacecraft are visually stunning. They have a commanding presence. They represent technical ingenuity, which Americans in particular identify with. So I think it just gets at that core interest that is part of everyone.
As the Udvar-Hazy Center marks its 5th anniversary, it has begun construction of Phase 2, a wing dedicated to the care and maintenance of the collection.
One of the major benefits of Phase 2 will provide a first-hand opportunity for visitors to view the restoration process. And this cannot be viewed in very many locations around the country, and certainly not to the level at which we are going to be doing it here. So it'll open up a whole new horizon for visitors and experience that they have with us.
The new wing of the Udvar-Hazy Center will be dedicated to preserving historic artifacts. But much like the ongoing story of flight, the Udvar-Hazy Center is as much about the future as it is about the past. Here, the museum's mission will come full circle to the core concept of preserving an unparalleled collection for the benefit of future generations. The pioneers of flight were and are men and women of courage, daring, determination, and vision. These heroes asked 2 basic questions: what if and what next? They haven't let much stand in their way, not fatigue, not fear, not failure, not even gravity. When Wilbur Wright approached the Smithsonian more than a century ago, he had no idea that the Wright Flyer would be here in the 21st century, inspiring the innovators of tomorrow. We can't predict the future of space exploration any more than the Wright brothers could have imagined where their invention at Kitty Hawk would lead. But we are certain that the Smithsonian will continue to tell these essential American stories for centuries to come.
When President Gerald Ford dedicated the National Air and Space Museum in 1976, he said it was the perfect gift to the American people on the nation's bicentennial. Phase 2 of the Stephen F. Udvar-Hazy Center will be a perfect gift to future generations of Americans who will continue to be inspired by innovation and achievement.
We teach the fundamentals of flight and all those things to thousands of children every year in actual classrooms, and then the museum itself is a classroom because they can come and see what they've been reading about. We have the first of many things, and they'll always be the first, but I think we'll have other firsts that will occur in the next 100 years. I don't have any idea what they will be, because no one would have ever thought we'd be where we are now.